You're about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So we have some breaking news. As expected, the Supreme Court is releasing some of their decisions, long-awaited decisions. The first one we're going to talk about is the Supreme Court said states can count mail-in ballots that arrive after Election Day. This was something that has been very, very contentious, especially since California sometimes takes weeks to count their mail-in ballots. But the Supreme Court on Monday upheld the state laws that do allow for ballots to arrive after Election Day. According to CNN, the court rejected Republicans' arguments that the practice, embraced by more than a dozen states, runs afoul of federal laws setting the November election day. The president said that this allows for cheating, and it does seem to bring a lot of concern when you see who's leading on election day and the day after, and then weeks later it changes. But the Supreme Court's opinion addresses specifically state laws that require that late arriving ballots to be postmarked by election day is okay. So, this isn't that much of a surprise, because the Supreme Court will, if states are allowed to have a certain degree of running their state elections, and if they decide to do, have early voting or change a date for this, or increase access to ballots, or allow ballot harvesting, or states have control over how they do their elections based on their rural populations, urban populations. And so, you would think it would be a simple fix, rather than, as we saw with the last major election, it was late into December when California finally called it on some of their state representatives, which ended up originally looking Republican for the first couple weeks. And then as we were getting closer to Christmas, they ended up going the Democrats' ways. Very easy to just say, look, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to do the mail-in ballot sooner. So your postmark date now has to be by this date, so we receive them all by Election Day. And then, so I could see how the feds do have a rule in saying, look, Election Day is Election Day. That's something that we have in the Constitution, but the Supreme Court sided with that. From what we're being told by CNN, they are still reviewing the legality of mass voters purges in the final weeks before an election, looking at some of the methods Arizona uses to keep non-citizens off the voter rolls. We don't think this dispute is going to be resolved before the midterms, but it's looking at voter rolls, the rolls of active voters. The justices will be examining the scope of the National Voter Registration Act, a 1993 law that governs how states maintain their voter rolls. Much of the case is concerning Arizona's specific procedures for vetting voter citizenship status. The dispute also tees up a question with nationwide implications about when election officials can purge rolls. You see, this wouldn't be an issue if people are going in to vote. Right? You're going in to vote. You have your ID. You have your documentation. You go in to vote. You put in that one vote. Yeah, but we have all this complication now because of the mail-in ballots. So not the biggest surprise, but as we get more information, we'll keep you posted. Also, the Supreme Court rejected President Donald Trump's attempt to immediately fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. This was a 5-4 majority. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion. Does the federal government have the ability to remove certain administrative officials? I haven't been able to see the brief on that, but when we do, we will talk about that. However, the Supreme Court did back President Donald Trump's ability to fire a member of the Federal Trade Commission. So that's interesting. So we're getting a little bit of back and forth here. So I apologize. It's breaking as it's coming in. So we're trying to get, as much as possible. Our show is live in the morning. I know many people listen to us at night. So some of you will say, how hard can it be, Dahlia? It's all over the place. Well, it's coming out right now. So as news is coming out. They say the conservative minority says Mississippi's mail ballot grace period postpones the election. Justice Sam Alito wrote for himself, and 3 conservative colleagues led the dissent of the mail ballot case. He argued that the federal election law could have overridden the laws, but as we just said earlier, it was a majority saying that the state laws reign on that. Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch joined all of that dissent. All of those dissenters, including Justice Brett Kavanaugh, joined parts of it. We're getting breaking news on this. I know they're still waiting on birthright citizenship. Not sure if we're going to get this today or tomorrow. And apparently there's also another case that I believe has to do with transgender minors. And I apologize, as we're getting breaking news, the links are just updating. So one thing about the Supreme Court is they like to give their decisions, at the last minute, right? Kind of like, we're going to throw the smoke screen, and then we're going to leave before anybody can, have an issue. Transgender athletes is also going to be up. I don't know if we're going to get that decision today or tomorrow to look at if men can perform in women's sports. This is a biggie. And we don't have the ruling yet. It might come after this broadcast, but this could be pretty consequential, where a biological male, do they have the ability or the right to, engage in women's sports, be in their locker room, be in a women's bathroom. So we're going to be getting that. And then, of course, the birthright citizenship. When somebody comes to the country, whether legally or illegally, and if they give birth while they are here on temporary status or illegal status, does that baby become a citizen? So stay tuned. We'll give you updates as soon as we get them. 1-877-Dolly.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. Because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. We'll help you find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. If you were hurt in a car accident, truck accident, motorcycle accident, rideshare accident, slip and fall, or any other type of accident, call our 24/7 hotline now and let us help you find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-978-6800. That's 800-978-6800. 800-978-6800. I'm Gina Hart, here with spokesman Jack Mercer. So Jack, tell our listeners who should give us a call right now.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me join you here in the studio. It's always great to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. The call is free, the consultation is free, and with our no-fee guarantee, you pay nothing unless we win you money.
That's great advice. Thanks, Jack. And is it true that the Legal Help Center is open 24/7?
That's right, Gina. We're open anytime you need us, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident of any kind, call now and let us help you find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-978-6800. That's 800-978-6800. 800-978-6800. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. Not available in California. May not be available in all states.
back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So a lot of my friends are Gen X, right? We were born between 1965 and 1980. I also have some baby boomer friends born before 1965 and some older millennial friends who were born after the 1980. And they've been kind of perplexed by this success that we have been seeing with socialist candidates. The Democratic Socialists of America has put Mamdani into power, Seattle's mayor, now Washington, D.C., City Council member Janice Lewis George, also a proclaimed Democratic Socialist, has a huge lead in the primary to replace Mayor Muriel Bowser. I believe she is leading Kenyon McDuffie by, I think, about 16 points. And so, growing up, America's capitalistic, communism is bad, socialism doesn't work. We're not getting that same message, or we don't have that same sentiment. And you're actually having Americans go, yeah, socialism sounds pretty good to me. In fact, when Obama and Kathleen Sebelius and Nancy Pelosi were working on the Affordable Care Act, and critics were like, but we don't want socialized medicine. We don't want socialized medicine. But the way the Affordable Care Act is written, we're going to have major problems. Not only decades from now, which we're seeing, but probably within weeks of it being passed. And people are like, but why? Why is socialized medicine bad? England's doing it. Israel's doing it. Other countries are doing it. Why is it bad? Canada's doing it. I'm like, well, it's bad because I see a lot of Canadians. They don't want to wait months for an MRI. They don't want to wait, months to see a primary care doctor. They want to see somebody right away. Well, look at now where we are in 2026. If you want to see a medical provider, what are you being told? It's months from now. If you want an MRI, it could take months. So our healthcare system, since the Affordable Care Act, is so flawed, with the exception of the pre-existing conditions getting covered, which is something I support, and physicals being covered. The average person, it's almost like they're in Canada or the UK. They can't get seen. Now, the difference, though, is if you walk into an ER, if you get you still can get some decent care. You could still get CAT scans. You could still get things done. In the UK, unfortunately, they're running out of money. They keep running out of money. And so from a healthcare standpoint, reason why we are going to really struggle if we go socialized is there's not enough money to do what people want. In a socialized system, can everybody get GLP-1s? Can everybody get expensive drugs? Probably not. And so the money ends up running out. And people always ask, why is socialism bad? Why is, let's go back to why people are asking for it. Why are we seeing so many cities, right, elect socialist mayors? Why? Well, if you look at them, many of them are younger. Right? You want to get the vote out. You want to get to younger people. Yeah, there's a lot of baby boomers out there. Their vote's important too. But you have more Gen Zs, millennials, younger Gen Xs than you do older Gen Xs and baby boomers. So there's a lot more of the population. Plus, when you ask people, is there capitalism working for them? And they're like, well, it's not, because I don't have a job. I lost it to AI. Gas prices are still up. I can't afford a home. Why am I voting for capitalism? Now, let's try it. Why not? For poops and giggles, let's see what Mamdani can do. Let's see what Lewis George could do for D.C. Now, how is Mamdani doing? Do you have the free buses? Do you have the free child care? Is your rent dropping? Not yet. Now, I know he's only been there, a year? Less than a year? No, he's been there 6 months. 6 months? Takes some time, but All we have are these trials with the free buses in the past. Apparently with the free buses, I forget if it was Kansas City, I forget which city trialed that. They said the problem with the free buses that they had was homeless people used them to stay warm. And so there were never any seats on them. So you couldn't really use them because homeless people were on them. And so the free buses, you ended up going and paying for transportation. Same thing with the government-run grocery stores. Government-run grocery stores, they said they never had enough food on the shelves. They didn't have enough choices. And in fact, I think the one in Kansas City ended up closing. So, and I know if it were, if more people on a grand scale worked, to try to figure out how to, deal with the challenges, these efforts might last longer. But it's the same thing that keeps happening. There's not enough funding. It sounds wonderful. Wow, free childcare. Free childcare. That's what a lot of mayors are now pushing for. We're going to have free childcare. And I got to tell you, childcare was expensive. I had to work, and I can't tell you how many moms, they go, look, I'm spending more on childcare than I'm making. I might as well just stay home with my kid. Why am I putting my kid in childcare and deal with the stress? But to do free childcare, all right, who is managing the teachers? Who is managing the care? Who is overseeing the facilities? Who's ensuring that everything is up to code? And when there's no staff, what do? If the government is running it, they're going to struggle. When somebody privately has a daycare, I mean, then they'll get their butt down there themselves. But if Mom Dommy's daycare struggles to staff, or they keep having people call out, you have to have a certain ratio. I forget what the state laws are per infant or per child. There's a ratio. And if that ratio isn't satisfied, adult to a child, you have to close for the day. Are they going to do that? Who's going to ensure they're going to do that? Or is Mom Dommy going to go, and you know what? I got it covered. I'll watch the kids today. So offering free childcare for millions of individuals is nice, but do you have enough licensed daycare technicians? Who's vetting them? How long is that going to take to do? Now, somebody can say, but Dr. Dahlia, then let's do that. Let's work to do that. We have, 73 million kids? 65 million kids? Not all of them need daycare. Let's say 10 million kids need daycare. All right, let's hire the people in the private daycare institutions. How quickly are you going to do that? And then what is that going to cost the taxpayer? I mean, you want to do government-run grocery stores. You want to do free buses. You want to have rent caps. You want to increase pay for workers. These are all really nice and attractive. This is why Americans are voting for it. They're like, what do I have to lose? Why not? I'm not, seeing where my tax dollars are going now, and I'm paying enough taxes, so why not? But then things get costlier. Apparently, California's passing a bill, which it's shocking that they have to pass a bill for this, but apparently a lot of landlords do not have a stove or a refrigerator in the unit. And so if you are renting an apartment, to rent an apartment with no stove or refrigerator screws over the tenant. So there's a law now in California where you have to have a working refrigerator, working stove. I'm amazed that there were landlords trying to, get away with that. But now the landlords are going to be like, all right, well, then I'm going to charge more rent. Although if I was looking for a place to live, I would say up to yours if there's no refrigerator or stove or bathroom or whatever. So people are very, very attracted to the younger, Louis George, when she speaks, she's dynamic. And apparently we're being told that they're they know how to train that next generation of politicians. They're not the old school, I'm going to say this and I'm going to wave my hands and I'm going to I mean, Bill Clinton was one of the ones to fight the welfare state, where he, had, I think, wanted to institute work requirements and things like that to make sure, people were not taking advantage of the system. If I could find it correctly, find it. And so when you are going to be offering everything and saying, we're going to cover for all this, who's overseeing? Who's making sure there's no fraud? Who's making sure these daycare centers are actually legitimate daycare centers? So before you do that, you need to prove to us you have the infrastructure in place, because it's going to take the other half of the country's tax dollars to make this work. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Hi, everyone. Super Bowl champ Vernon Davis here from Legal Help Center. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up, because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. You can find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. The call is free, the consultation is free, and you can speak with a live agent right now. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident of any kind, call now to find out if you have a case and how much you could potentially get.
Thanks, Vernon. You heard it, folks. If you've been injured, call and find out how much you qualify for. Call 800-679-0800. That's 800-679-0800. 800-679-0800. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states. Not available in California.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So, to use marijuana or not use marijuana is still the question. I think we have enough data saying, look, if you don't have to use it, don't use it. But everybody and their mother seems to be on it. And yes, there's a lot of moms out there on it. I see it. And I voted to legalize it. I live in Southern Nevada. When we had that on a referendum, or on our, when we had that on our, I think, it was a referendum that we had to approve. I did vote yes on that, because I wanted us to be able to study it and see what medical applications there are. Make sure the police didn't have to be burdened with, those, to me, small crimes compared to all the other bad things that happen out there. In fact, I was just in Alaska at the Walmart a couple times, and there was a shooting at a Walmart that injured officers. I mean, these are the things I want our police to deal with, not, somebody possessing a bag of weed. But the one thing I did not anticipate, and I should have anticipated, sadly, was that the cannabis would run rampantly through our high schools and even middle schools, and that kids would be exposed, having access to it, and using it even more than cigarettes and alcohol. That's a concern, especially since you see the dropout rate. I don't need to go and get a job. I could just play video games in my mom's basement. And I think it really damaged a lot of kids. But what about adults and cannabis use? So we have a new study where it's actually kind of defying what we thought cannabis can do in terms of our memory, in terms of our inhibitory control, our cognitive functioning. And new research published in the American Medical Association, and funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, said that the long-term impact of marijuana use on cognitive ability may be not as damaging as previously thought. Now, I beg to differ, because I have seen individuals who have been, long-time users, and they just don't seem to have the functioning. In fact, that's what they came to see me for, because they were having memory issues. But was it the marijuana, or was it something else that they were doing? I assumed it was the marijuana. Well, in this AMA study being reported by Newsweed, You know, there's news feed. This is called news weed. The AMA study was conducted among patients recently authorized to use cannabis for medical purposes. And according to the study, they found no substantial decline in cognitive function after 1 year of regular use. Now, it's not that they studied people who used it for 40 years. This is 1 year. How did they deduce this? Well, they looked at functional MRIs, or magnetic resonance imaging, to monitor the brain activity during cognitive tasks, measuring changes in areas such as the working memory, reward processing, inhibitory control. And these were Boston area participants. So they followed 57 Boston. I like Bostonians, all right? Okay. But after following 57 Boston area participants over a 12-month period, they found that there was no statistically significant difference in the brain activation between baseline scans and follow-up scans 1 year later. Okay, you know what? There's already a limitation in the study. You used Bostonians. Bostonians are pretty shrewd. They're pretty quick. Same thing with New Yorkers. I don't think you're going to be able to detect, because their baseline is so quick and astute. And I think we needed a different population base. So this study suggests that cannabis, if you're using it in mild to moderate amounts for pain, anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, had minimal effects on cognitive domains. So according to the researchers, they said working memory, reward, and inhibitory control tasks did not differ statistically between baseline and end line and were not associated with changes in cannabis use frequency. So what does that mean? Does it mean you could smoke? No. Okay, we've had, and use it? No, we've had many studies showing that recreational cannabis impairs cognitive function. But that's the difference. Recreational versus medical cannabis. So this study looked at medical cannabis as opposed to recreational. Medical cannabis, yes, you can use a bong, and it doesn't always have to be Marinol or pharmaceutical grade cannabis, but maybe it's because the medicinal dosing has a little bit more science to it. Maybe there's some more control to it, as opposed to, I want to go and get baked. So I think there is a difference between recreational use and medicinal use. Now, a study in 2022 found that prescribed medical cannabis may have minimal acute impact on cognitive function in patients with chronic diseases. So researchers hypothesized that the difference between the two forms of consumption could be dosing, or the frequency, or the intention behind consumption. So if and they agree with what I just said, medical cannabis, there might be more of a choreography, a prescribed regimen, a doctor behind it. Whereas recreational, like I said, is let's go get baked sort of thing. So the authors are from Harvard and McGovern Institute of Brain Research at MIT and School of Engineering and all that. And so what I take from this is, and by the way, there's another study, looked at data from 63 million Medicare beneficiaries. Now, Medicare beneficiaries are usually older, but it could be some individuals with disability. They revealed that there was no statistically significant increase in psychosis diagnoses in states that legalize medical cannabis. Now, we know that marijuana could cause psychosis because we've seen it in the ER multiple times. But the difference with this is, again, medical cannabis. Not that it's a different, shall we say, brand or strain, but there's a different choreography to its use. So what does that mean? Do we have to take our recreational users and turn it into something medicinal? Do we have to dose them properly? Yeah, I got to take a look at what happened with Ozempic. Now you have all this microdosing. The art of microdosing is actually improving the success of people trying to lose weight, as opposed to those saying, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to give myself the maximum dose so I could fit into a bikini by 4th of July. So maybe it means we do need to get the doctors involved. Could also mean that the brain is getting used to it. Now, I saw this with people using alcohol. I think they did have anxiety, depression, cognitive issues, but the functioning ability of those who drank on a regular basis shocked me. And I think it's because the body built up a tolerance until the body gave out. And I've known 2 people who ended up dying because of their alcohol use. The liver just shut down. So it could be that your body is temporarily going, you know what, this is, this is how I'm getting used to it. Another issue could be that some of the individuals that are using medicinal cannabis have so much anxiety, have so much pain, have so much depression that they're not functioning well. And that using the cannabis to modulate their anxiety or their pain or their depression brings them to a better functioning level. I got to tell you, when I'm in pain, I can't, if I have a migraine, I just don't give me anything to think or process about. I'm in pain. So maybe, for those individuals who are getting a benefit from it, that's the lesser of 2 evils. So this study is important. It's interesting. It doesn't mean, though, that you could just chronically use without there being, we've had plenty of studies linking, the marijuana to memory decline, psychotic states, anxiety, depression, etc. But we also know there's different strains. And there's an art to it. And we're really learning a lot about sativa, indica, hybrid strains, different brands, different, and so there's we have, what to me this means is we got a lot more work to do. 1-877-DOC.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So many of you have, in different forms, asked what I think about Nazis being elected and the Democratic Socialists, and do I really think they're going to be taking over the Democratic Party? And I love that you're asking for my opinion. I don't know how Graham Plattner qualified, for being a candidate. I don't know how he advanced as far as he did. I think it's just because Janet Mills in Maine backed out of the race. And so now he's going to be up against Susan Collins. These Democratic Socialists, which, started, even way before Bernie Sanders, but really started to take a little bit of momentum after Ocasio-Cortez and other progressives made it. The argument that people are saying, the optimists are saying that there's plenty of moderate Democrats who will not let this happen. That the moderate Democrats will not let socialism or communism take over. I disagree with that. I agree that there are more moderate Democrats than socialists. I agree with that in numbers. But if they're not voting, then the Democrat socialists get in. And I don't even know why they're even called Democrats. They're called socialists. But they call them the DSA. And when people say, but yeah, it's only Mamdani, and yeah, there's going to be maybe a couple of districts and maybe a couple other mayors, they get into then other powerful positions. Mamdani is the mayor of one of the largest, most populous cities in the United States and one of the biggest global financial centers in the world. And he's a socialist / communist, not a supporter of Israel. That's frightening. Now, he got in. I think he got 1 million votes, even though there were 8 million registered voters in New York City. Only 1 million voted for him. The other 7 million either didn't vote or they voted for Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo. And that was, although he beat Andrew Cuomo. So it was a shoo-in for him when it came to running. But when you look at the numbers in these cities and who's voting, a lot of people aren't voting in these elections. And so what's happening is the DSA is very organized. They're very charged. And I think they also intimidate people. Not necessarily saying, I'm going to hurt you if you don't vote for me. But they make people feel like if they don't go that way, just like we saw with Clinton and all that. So these younger DSA candidates or the movement is very highly organized, very highly funded, and very charged. And they're up against older, more establishment, and many of them who were Bidenites. Those supported Biden. And so the moderate Democrat is now struggling because they have to make decisions between, transgender men and women's sports, taxing the wealthy and rich when they need donors and they've relied on those donors, scaring business out of town when they need those businesses for them, losing the Jewish vote to be pro-Hamas or anti-Israel. And this is, and when people say, well, are they really pro-Hamas? If Hamas is still leading Palestine and they want Hamas to be able to run, that's pro-Hamas. So the Palestinians are being run by Hamas. When Palestinians are run by Palestinians, it's a different story, but Hamas is running them. So that's a huge concern. So these moderate Democrats are like, okay, I don't know where to go with this. Am I supporting women or am I supporting transgender men? Am I supporting a secure nation and the legal immigrants and their ability to flourish, or am I supporting the illegal immigrants? Am I supporting our police or defunding our police? And the Democrats are getting split. Meanwhile, the Democratic Socialists are like, yeah, we're going to defund this, we're going to defund this, we're going to give free this. And many of the moderate Democrats, they're like, but you can't really promise that. That's not going to work. I mean, we're looking at the long game. We want to make good on our promises. Meanwhile, the voters are like, look, I didn't get much out of this Democrat. I don't like Trump. Let's say if you're in a blue city. So I'll go for the young Mamdani. I'll go. You know what? I got nothing to lose if I could get something for free. I'm not rich. They're saying only rich people could lose. Yet they don't understand that if you do go into a socialized state, if you use the bus And now the buses are free buses. So everybody and, homeless people are living on the bus. Now you don't have access to the bus. You think you're going to have access to the free grocery store when the grocery stores have failed because they don't have enough, food and they're not being stocked right, etc. So it does eventually affect you. Which is why Mamdani says he's going to do the free bus at the end of his term. He knows the free bus thing is going to fail. And there's going to be backlash. So he wants to wait till he's reelected and then let it fail. So it's going to take a while to see. You and I know that socialism fails because we've seen what happens in other countries. But it's going to take a while for these new electees to do their damage. And meanwhile, people are getting excited. The Democrats are needing somebody that's a firecracker, somebody that's going to energize the party. And anybody associated with Biden or Kamala Harris is not very popular, or Clinton, not very popular. They could go back to Obama's, but Michelle Obama says she doesn't want to run. So now what's left are these ultra-liberal progressives. True, there are more moderates, and I think moderate Democrats are still going to outnumber. But we are seeing the biggest exponential rise in politicians advocating for socialism, advocating for these crazy ideas, and supporting anti-Semitism. And it's very, very frightening that this is where we are today. Rather than being more unified, more democratic, more common sense, more learning what didn't work in other countries, and learning from our mistakes, the DSA is double downing. And they have social media on their side. They have youth and energy on their side. They have marketing on their side. And they have the complacency that's hurting the moderate Democrats on their side as well. Which means during the midterms, people are going to have to get out and vote. And if they really don't want socialists and socialism, they're going to have to vote for the Republican. And I think many moderate Democrats are going to vote for Susan Collins, Grant Plattner in Maine, really? That's who you want representing you? Somebody with a Nazi tattoo who doesn't really oyster farm and is, ripping on our veterans and our military? You really want him being in Congress? But if they're able to mobilize the voters, that's who's getting voted in. And more people have to, stop being intimidated and vote, or ensure that they actually go to the poll and get that vote in. None of this BS with mail-in ballots having holes in them so you could see who got the circle. Just complete BS has been happening with our elections. So I want to be optimistic, but no, we are seeing socialism take over. And Democrats are letting it happen. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.